You are watching Sammy, the Interviewing Toucan, made possible by the Indiana Young Readers Center. Hey everybody, it's Sammy, and I'm here today with Phyllis Root. Hi Phyllis, how are you?
Sammy, it's so nice to meet you.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you too. I just love meeting and talking to Indiana authors, and you have an Indiana connection, so let's hear all about it.
I am a Hoosier. I do not live in Indiana now, but I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I still have family there. I went to school there. I went to college in Valparaiso, Indiana. I live in Minnesota now, but I'm a Hoosier at heart. The Minnesota Lynx women basketball team, is proof of that. Cheer, yell, basketball. Hoosier.
Yay! I'm glad that you're representing Hoosiers well over in Minnesota. Now, in Minnesota, are they called Minnesotans?
Yes.
Okay, so they don't have something fancy like we do.
I do not think so. I have never actually heard it.
Okay, well, that just gives you proof that Hoosiers are special people. So, Phyllis, let's talk a little bit about your work. I have two of your books here. I have Anywhere Farm and The Lost Forest, and they're both picture books, but they're very different in their scope, kind of. Anywhere Farm is sort of like a lilting poem all about being green and planting vegetable gardens really anywhere around you. So it's a delightful book. And then The Lost Forest is more of almost like a nonfiction story. Is that right?
They really are two very different books. Anywhere Farm, where I grew up in Fort Wayne, it was actually right outside the city when I was a little ways outside the city when I was a child. And we had a huge, huge vegetable garden. So I feel like I've always had, no matter where I've lived, there's been gardens in my life. And I love the idea that you put a seed in the ground, and wherever you put it, it will probably grow if you give it what it needs. When I wrote Anywhere Farm, many of the picture books I had written by that time, some of them rhymed, a lot of them I just had fun writing them, and I hope people have fun reading them. I would say they mostly fell into the fictional category. And one thing I love to do as a writer is I feel like when you read a picture book, it's a kind of a performance. And it's a performance where you invite the children, the listener, who's ever listening, you invite them into the performance to be a part of it. And so I like putting in things that where kids can join in, where there's repetition, where there's fun sounds. But about maybe 10 years or so ago, I was asked by University of Minnesota Press to write a counting book for Minnesota, nonfiction. And so that started me writing and thinking about nonfiction picture books, of which The Lost Forest is based on a true story. Way back in the 1800s, when surveyors went across the country and sort of laid out where the sections and the townships and all those things were those straight lines you see when you fly in an airplane, or those county line roads that just go straight across the countryside. And in Minnesota, they were working in the north woods, very cold, November, snow, ground was like boggy and wet. And for some reason, nobody knows why, but there are speculation, they surveyed a big section of old growth forest as a lake. And so when the loggers came through, the map said that was a lake, and they left it alone. And they just kept growing for 70 or so years until someone looked at them and said, it's not a lake. So
Right. Oh my goodness.
you can go back and look online where your own, if you have property, you can look and see what was there when they first surveyed it. They put down what trees were there and if there were streams, and it's a really fascinating walk back into time.
Well, and if you go back further, it's even more fascinating because then we get into the whole thing about like, why were we surveying the land and who did we get the land from and all of those, pretty lofty questions. So, I just love that we can dive into all of these really big thoughts and things just through picture books.
They're so special. They're about a clear single thing, I think. Good picture books
Yeah.
are one true thing, even if they're made up.
Well, and I want to quickly mention you have a new book that's either out, it's probably out already, and it's about bees. Do you have it there? And is this one a fiction or nonfiction? I'm guessing non?
fiction, and it's a book I wrote with two other people. It was a collaboration. We all were writers and we knew each other and we loved each other as friends, and we loved being outside and we loved gardens and plants. And we wanted to write about the rusty patch bumblebee, which is the first bee that was ever put on, first bumblebee that was ever put on the endangered species list, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service endangered species list. And also, it's the Minnesota state bee now. We have a state bee. But the amazing thing about this queen bee is she's like an inch long. She hibernates by herself in the ground all winter. She comes out and she starts to make her nest, and then she lays her eggs, and she does all of this by herself until she gets some worker bees. So she's just like, she's amazing. We're very excited about the book and excited about the beautiful art that's in it too.
Well, I can't wait to see it. That's so great. Phyllis, let's talk a little bit more. Where are you in your creative journey? Where do you hope to be someday?
Whoa, that's such a good question. I have written mostly picture books, but I have written a couple of middle grade novels, one that I just finished, and it's the one about trolls that I was telling you about a little earlier. I hope to keep writing. I loved collaborating. I love writing with other people, which is sort of new to me because things come out of it that might not come out of any of us alone. I just, when we work together, it's a really fun, unique experience. So I hope to keep doing that. I hope to keep collaborating. And I just hope to keep writing. Even if I never publish another thing, I'm going to be writing because
I love that.
writing gives me joy.
Yay. Phyllis, can you tell us, do you know how many books you've had published?
I think over the years, I've written over 50 picture books, but a lot of them are out of print now, because I've been doing this for, 40 years or so.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, I love that. Well, Phyllis, we're getting to the end here. Do you have a little show and tell you want to share with us today?
I do. When I was working on my troll book, I'm not an artist, so I don't do anything about the art with the picture books, but I love to do things with my hands. And when I was trying to figure out what my troll characters look like, I went and got some wooden finger puppets and I made some little trolls. And
oh my gosh!
In the story, so there's a cat, and there's one more troll that I didn't make that I bought in a little shop that sort of inspired these trolls. But I love the idea of doing things with my hands, even if they don't show up in the book. And I do have one more thing if there's time.
Yeah.
One time when I was struggling with the book and my kids were young and we'd been making a lot of books in their classes, I decided that the way to work on this book was to make a dummy. And you can see I'm not an artist, but I was trying to figure out the story. And so I had so much fun doing little doors that opened and fences. And then in the very end, there's a little house that pops up.
Oh my gosh.
The finished book, the book that got published eventually, looks nothing like that. But it's just another way to think about writing, just sort of think with your hands. And I really believe that writers get a lot out of playing, whether it's playing with words, playing with paper. I know I do.
And that's so cute that you made all those little trolls yourself. Those are charming. Well, Phyllis, this has been just delightful. Thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Oh, well, this is your favorite Hoosier Toucan encouraging you to read local. So long, everyone.